Welcome to the Polish Podcast, a space dedicated to emboldening women in their faith and work. I'm your host, Jane Dorman. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to invite you to be a part of our Polish community. Hit that like button and subscribe to our podcast to stay updated with our latest episodes. At Polish Network, we recognize that your work is more than just a job. It's a calling. That's why we're here to provide the connections, development, and spiritual nourishment you need to flourish. Each episode delves deep into topics that resonate with our Polish community. Join us as we hear from inspiring guests who share their unique perspectives and experiences as Christian women in the workplace. So no matter what brought you here today, we are thrilled to have you with us. Our aim is to ignite your passion and empower you to excel on your leadership journey. So let's dive in and explore together. We're launching into a new series today focused on the transformative power of leading with enthusiasm. We believe that true leadership leaves a legacy that inspires others, a legacy built on passion, resilience, and a relentless drive to uplift those around us. Now, when I think of leading with enthusiasm, one name immediately comes to mind, and her name is Melissa Mashburn. Melissa wears many hats. As an author, a speaker, a pastor, and executive director. And they're all connected through her mission to champion and coach women in ministry to lead effectively wherever God has placed them. Melissa does this through her work as the executive director of Ministry Chick.
We're a private community of over 3,600 women worldwide who work in faith-based organizations. So that's like churches, nonprofits, Christian schools, that kind of stuff. And Ministry Chick exists to help give these leaders the resources and connections they need to thrive as a female leader. So that's what I get to do. And I get to do that now from South Texas. So pretty excited about being a Texan and doing all the things that God is letting me do in this season.
While Melissa's career began in the marketplace for an environmental cleanup company, she eventually felt the call to professional ministry.
Over the last 25 years, though, I've led in the local church space with various titles and responsibilities. And 5 years ago, I stepped into the role of Ministry Chick. And over time, it became clearer and clearer to me that my ministry focus had shifted from the women in the churches to the women leading on the church staff team. So since then, I wrote a book called Ministry Chick, Find Your Community, Own Your Leadership, and Take Your Step for Women in Ministry, and have created coaching groups specifically addressing challenges that women in faith-based organizations struggle with in their daily work.
Women working in the ministry space encounter challenges akin to those in the marketplace. And while it may seem that the ministry world enjoys a symbiotic relationship, the truth is that the struggle is very real. So how do you sustain enthusiasm in your leadership amidst these challenges and adversity?
This is such a good and challenging question, quite honestly. Yeah. Mostly trying to pinpoint a specific obstacle or setback. Wow. I think one of the most recent ones is probably also one of the most relatable. I was in an environment where I had team members who did not like me. Who did not like me, did not want me to be on the team, and did not appreciate me being an outsider joining the team. So it was hard on so many levels because I had never experienced like that much direct opposition, especially from, we're all working at a church, like, right? It should not be like that. But I like the work that I did. But the unexpected obstacles of the staff dynamics made it hard for me to feel like I fit in there. And you asked how I maintain enthusiasm and motivation. And honestly, I cried, I prayed, I sought biblical counseling. And then I just decided that there was clearly a reason that God had me there. Mm-hmm. And I focused on the people that I was leading and serving, and it kind of allowed me the freedom to not care, about what the other people thought or anything else, but it redirected my focus so that I could just do the work that he called me to do, and I could do it with joy. And it wasn't easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that or drive by that. But once I was able to kind of check my heart and redirect my focus, I was able to get to work doing what he called me to do. And when I'm doing what he calls me to do, there is a overflow of joy that just happens. If you've ever done, that thing that when you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, I was made for this.
Yes.
Like, that feeling, it's hard to quantify, but when you're in that zone, and so I just did whatever I needed to do to be in that zone of doing, like, I'm not looking to the left or the right, and I'm not going to let, naysayers or people that don't like me or my style or whatever it was, keep me, because God clearly brought me here and I have work to do. And so until he calls me out, I'm going to get to work.
Regardless if you work in the traditional marketplace or on the team for a faith-based organization, working on a team that doesn't want you can be disorienting. It's frustrating. It's painful. It's hard. And I commend Melissa for her resilience. She didn't ignore the difficulty of her reality. She leaned in and embraced her pain in a healthy way.
I went out to my car, drove it to the end of the parking lot, and I called my best friend and I was like, will you cry with me? And, she just sat there and listened. Am I a bad person? Why is this happening? And she's like, no. Do you need me to come to Kentucky? Do you need me to? And I'm like,
yeah.
No, I just need you to sit with me and just remind me of who I am in this moment. And so once I did that, I was kind of like, because sometimes you just have to cry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You can't
you do.
Suck it up, buttercup, all the time. You have to just let it out. Our emotions are there for a reason.
Leading with enthusiasm is more than putting on a happy face. When faced with a challenging situation or seasons of adversity, it's in these moments where we build resilience in our leadership. And this resilience only grows out of how we show up to where we are called. Well, we're going to take a short break to share with you opportunities to connect with Polish Network. And when we come back, Melissa and I continue our conversation on maintaining enthusiasm and motivation during tough times and more. So stay tuned. Leadership isn't just about authority. It's about leaving a legacy that ignites others' passions and ambitions. While a legacy unfolds over a lifetime, the path to greatness starts with leading others with enthusiasm. Join us at Polish this month as we explore the power of leading with enthusiasm. With longer days and brighter spirits, summer is the perfect time to infuse your leadership style with a sunny disposition. Let's explore how your enthusiasm can be a catalyst for others to dream bigger, learn more, achieve more, and evolve into their best selves. Visit our website at polishnetwork.org to learn more about the local chapter near you. Let's embrace the creative energy of enthusiasm and lead with passion and purpose. How do you balance this need for resilience and persistence and then maintaining this positive outlook or this enthusiastic posture in your leadership, especially during these uncertain or adverse times in leadership? What do you think?
Oh my gosh. The whole time you're saying this, I keep thinking of that song, I Get Knocked Down and I Get Up Again.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like the old school, like blow up that toy and you'd punch it and it'd knock over and it'd pump right back up. I feel that. I feel that on so many levels. And I think part of that is growing up, I was not allowed to say I can't. Which was super annoying as a child. Mm-hmm. But as an adult, I can see that it really kind of helped me move past the quitting option and forced me to figure things out. Now, I will admit, I might have had to go through a temper tantrum or two.
Sure.
And even crying and a full-on meltdown to get to the point where I would eventually figure it out. But I did eventually figure it out. And that lesson is still something that I carry with me even today. Because when I'm tempted to say I can't, and let me tell you, there are a lot of things, especially in our world today, because everything's changing every day. And just as soon as you figure something out, there's something else out there, and you're like, another thing I need to learn. I will not say I can't. So when I'm tempted to do that, what I've learned now as an adult is to either decide that I'm going to figure it out on my own, or I'm going to ask a friend. And I'm going to ask a friend that already knows how to do it or is a little bit better at that. But either way, it gets done. And what I've noticed over the years is people want to help you. You just have to ask. We don't have to do it all on our own. And being resilient doesn't mean I have to figure it all out. And I have to be the best at everything. It just has to be, I need to know what I can do and what I am unable. See, I still can't say it. What I am unable to do quickly or easy, just being wise with my time, right? Maybe I know somebody that can help me. And if I just ask, more often than not, people will say yes. And what would take them 5, 10, 15 minutes might have taken me all day and a whole frustration, maybe a meltdown, a temper tantrum, and a crying fit. But they did it in 15 minutes just because I humbled myself and said, I'm really struggling with this. Do you know how to do this? And just let them help.
No, and I think that's important for us to consider. I don't know this, you know what? This feels like very Holy Spirit led. This ask, making the ask keeps coming up in conversations I'm having with people. And recently I was talking to someone and she was saying how she had a friend, and what she admired about her, she was not afraid to make the ask for whatever. And it's like, so why am I afraid to make the ask? What am I not asking for? And why, so why do you think we would be afraid to make any ask of people, especially in like you were sharing, like asking a friend, to speak into this or help me out? Why do you think there's that resistance there?
I feel like we've bought into this self-reliant that we're supposed to have it all figured out, and what we see everybody's got it all figured out and everybody's amazing and they're all doing these great and hard things. Why can't I do that? Well, that's not reality, one. And two, we are not supposed to do this alone. It's biblical. We don't have because we don't ask. So I am a firm believer that if it's a win, if it's a win for the other person that I'm making the ask in some way, shape, or form, it's a win for me and it's a win for kingdom. Why am I not asking? And so this has been the last 2 or 3 years, I've been audaciously asking people to do things, be a part of groups, be a part of my coaching groups. I mean, it even with my book, some of the people that wrote articles, and I'm like, people are like, how did you get, and whoever it was, and I'm like, I just asked. That is it.
Just ask. So don't be afraid. Make the ask. Win, win, win. Yes, I love all that. I think that's something that I think we can all lean into a little bit more, this whole self-reliance piece. I feel it, and it has not worked out for me. So it's one of those I'm learning as I move forward in the work that I do currently, and in the work, learning from work in the past, where I didn't make the ask. And I'm like, you know what, I don't have to do this on my own. We do not have to do this on our own. Just make the ask, for sure.
Be collaborators. Everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Well, speaking of kingdom collaborators, I kind of want to circle back to the situation you shared with us where, you were working on a team and there were people on the team that didn't like you. So you still have to work together as a team, right? So when you're dealing with resistance or skepticism from team members, how do you leverage your enthusiasm to build trust or foster collaboration? Is that even possible?
I think it is possible, but I think everybody has to be willing to be made willing. And if you're not willing to be made willing, right, there's that extra step. They might say that I'm willing, but if they're not willing to be made willing, like if God's not renewing their heart and their mind, it takes two. And so I
Right.
can show up and be authentic and be willing to accept that, maybe I came across too hard or too fast or too Florida or too whatever, right?
Right.
And maybe that rubbed them the wrong way. So I have to own my part, but I also have to be willing to move forward. But that takes both sides. They have to own their part and be willing to move forward. So as long as I'm showing up and I'm doing the hard work and I'm checking myself, then I can't worry about the rest, right? I think it was
Right.
Charles Stanley did an interview, and they asked him, and I talk about this all the time. It's even in the book, but it's been one of those guiding principles for me. And they asked him, like, how did you pastor a church for 50 years? And he said, I had one thing that I followed: obey God and leave all the consequences to Him. If I'm obeying God, He's going to work out everything else. And so that's kind of the posture I've had to take is after I've checked my heart and checked myself, right? Am I obeying God? If I'm obeying God, I don't need to be focused on what other people think. And it says even in Galatians 1:10, am I trying to gain the approval of man? But then I'm not following God. So, I'm totally paraphrasing. So look up Galatians 1:10 to get that.
Okay.
That was the Melissa hyphenated version, but it's whose approval are you trying to get? And I want God's approval. And so if I've done that work, and then I can walk in freedom and just be me.
Melissa, I agree with you. Like it comes back to that. You kept your focus on God. God is our reference point. Where is He leading me? How is He leading me? Where is He calling me? And where am I resisting in obedience? Maybe,
Yeah.
and I think those are cautionary questions to investigate and dive deep into what's going on in our heart and our minds. What about the other person? Like, what if you're on a team and you don't get along with maybe one or two people on that team, and you're doing all you can to show up as your best, most enthusiastic self, but there's resistance, or it's just they're not, what's the word I'm looking, cooperating, or they're not reciprocating that same posture. Like, how do we navigate that piece of it?
Oh, we're really going off the road now.
We are a little bit. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't know that I handled this particular situation the right way, but I did it in the most authentic way for me.
Yeah.
And when it was just me and this person left in the office one day and everybody else was long gone, and I just kept feeling the spirit, like, say something. And I'm like, I am not going to do that. And then finally it was just so overwhelming. I was like, why do you hate me? And like I said, that's not the right way, but I just couldn't even articulate. And it was, well, I don't hate you. And I'm like, well, it kind of feels like that. And so we ended up having a good discussion. I think it helped in a lot of ways, because I think I ended up taking this person off guard. And because nobody else was around and it was end of the day, we were both able to say, and here's the thing, you have to be able to speak the truth, but you have to be able to speak the truth in love. And I think what ended up happening was we both spoke the truth. We both spoke it in love. We both said what we needed to say.
Yeah.
It didn't make any major changes to the situation, but I think we both had a better understanding of each other and could say, okay, maybe that was a misunderstanding. Maybe that was a misunderstanding. And there was a little bit more respect, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is, God's in, even if it doesn't feel like God's in it, He's in it. The Holy Spirit's moving, and are we being sensitive to those promptings where the Holy Spirit is inviting you to initiate a awkward conversation, or even if we don't do it perfectly, He's he speaks through us, or, I don't know. It just kind of awkwardly comes together somehow. Or, I don't know.
In all honesty, I did not handle that super at all. But
sure.
I always say, especially in a tough conversation, I hope you hear my heart and not necessarily the words, because when it's tough and we're emotional and maybe we've kind of worked ourselves up into that point where we're going to have this conversation or whatever, right? We're like amped up, and chances are our mouth is going to run away from us, or we're gonna say things that we didn't actually think through. And so I always say, please hear my heart over the words I say, because there's a high likelihood, I'm a verbal processor, so there's a high likelihood I'm going to bloop and be like, I'll take that, and you can't. And so, but I know my heart is good and wants reconciliation and wants to figure this out. So I try to go with that.
Yeah, that's so good, Melissa. That's encouraging to hear and to lean into. And I'm a verbal processor too. And we just, sometimes words can escape and you're like, well, that wasn't supposed to leave. Well, Melissa, what advice would you give to emerging leaders who are struggling to maintain enthusiasm and motivation amidst the demands and the pressures of their leadership responsibilities?
I think this kind of goes back, even some other things that we've talked about, is really taking an assessment of yourself and being honest with yourself first. Is it the demand of the workload, or is it the pressure that we're putting on ourselves? Because, we do that, right? And it's easy to speak in overgeneralizations, but when we become aware of the truth, like what's really going on, then we can lean into whatever the real issue is and start to peel it back to the root. And once you figure that out, then you can adjust. But until you know that, it's harder to know what a win looks like, right? And so I would suggest, after kind of working through this on your own, to reach out to your leader and work through any of the items that there may be some confusion. But more than anything, that's even kind of what I was saying a little while ago, it's check your heart. What's going on in your own life right now, right? You're doing a heart check. What's going on that might be clouding things a bit? It could be family stress. It could be financial stress. It could be, any kind of other things that are going on. We're women, so there's all kinds of other things that could be going on, right? And so is that a factor? And if it's a factor, is it clouding judgment on other things? And you have to be honest with yourself. If you're not, then you're kind of casting blame on something else, when it could just be you're tired and you need a nap, or you need to eat, or right, you need to go outside and go for a walk or readjust. So it's kind of figuring out what that is. And that honest reflection is also partnered with prayer. And then seeking, search me, O God, and know my heart, and seeking what he says about it. And then just a reminder, you don't have to do this on your own. Find a friend or a mentor that you can walk through this with and get good, godly counsel to kind of figure some of this stuff out.
I know that's a word, like, when I think about leadership development and leadership growth, we had Jenny Catron on the show recently, and she really leaned into, we talked about casting vision, but she really was leaning into, like, we need to be so self-aware as leaders, because if I can't even lead myself, how can I be expected to lead others well? Right. And that's what I'm hearing when you're sharing this. It's the whole self-reflection piece and taking it to God, because he's not going to diminish these feelings that you're wrestling with, or just the other night, it was so odd. I felt like I had like a panic attack, and there was really nothing to be panicked about, but I think I was feeling maybe just pressures from the week, or just like the weight of the week was coming on me. And I honestly, I tried to handle it, in physical ways, like watching. I'm just going to tune out by watching another episode. Like, what am I like behind on TV or Hulu or whatever? And I'm watching, and I'm like feeling just worse because I'm just not dealing with it. And I just remember the Holy Spirit saying, "Will you just write it down?" And so I got my journal out and I started writing. And then I was like, okay, God, like, I guess this is what I'm wrestling with here. And let's talk about it. And there was just this release of just like his peace and real, like you said, you're not in it alone.
Right.
Get those trusted friends or voices in your life that are godly voices that, they speak the same language as you in like in faith terms, and that you can just really be vulnerable with. I think, that whole community piece is like crucial. And you take it back to God to check your heart.
It's a both. It's not a one or the other. It's a both, because I do believe he speaks to us through prayer. He speaks to us through his word, and he speaks to us through people. And that's why it's so important to choose well who you surround yourself with. Because you become like the people you surround yourself with. So it's important.
It sure is. And just when I think about like leading with enthusiasm, and again, like we're trying to, I feel like in this conversation kind of take off the covering of like this, you're always happy or toxic positivity, or, it's not that.
No.
It's maintaining this heart posture of remembering like what God is calling you to do, remembering you're not alone in it, remembering sometimes you're called to do things that frankly you can't do on your own. Like you need God to intercede, and he wants to. That's like our partnership with him. And, every so often we will face failure. We will face setbacks, other challenges. How can we reframe our mindsets when we are faced with those setbacks or there's failures, in reframing it in the sense that, is this a learning opportunity? I know I hear that a lot in leadership circles, like failure isn't bad, it's how we learn. But as someone who hates trial and error and hates getting it wrong, like how can we reframe our mindset and then use those failures or setbacks to fuel our enthusiasm to grow in our leadership?
Yeah, I don't like to fail either. I'll just be straight up honest with you.
Yep.
I'm learning to embrace failure as part of this journey, right?
Right.
And I think when we do things that we've never done before, how can we expect to come in and be amazing at it? And so it's kind of very unrealistic in the first place. So I don't know why we're so surprised if we, stumble and fall, because if it's the first time you're doing something or you're trying something completely different, that's how you learn. But John Acuff has a great book called Soundtracks, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking, because a lot of that, starts here. That really challenged me to reframe and create a more positive, get it done soundtrack in my brain, instead of the, oh, there she goes again. It was more of a, you got this, Rocky theme, that whole thing, right?
Right.
Maybe a Taylor Swift song or two, who knows? But let's face it, we spend more time in our thoughts than we do actually with our words, right? So making sure that we get our thoughts right helps us to tweak how we look at failures and then reframe them as learning opportunities. And I love this quote from Ben Franklin, and it says, "I didn't fail the test. I just found 100 ways of doing it wrong." And I'm like, for whatever, the man was brilliant, right? And so he just kept trying again. And in the words of like the old, I'm totally aging myself here, but the old GPS systems were basically recalculating all the time. And that's okay, because at least when we're recalculating, we're moving forward. We're not stuck, or we're not stopped, or we're not frozen in fear. I think that's way worse than failing, is not trying and not doing something different.
I agree. Not trying is worse than failure, and failure is still hard. So
That's right. It is. I'm sorry.
It is. I recognize that as an area of growth for me in my leadership journey currently is that, but I hear you and I agree. I've heard that Ben Franklin quote before, and it used to always bother me. Like I'd be like, I don't want 100 times.
And do I have the tenacity to do it 99
exactly.
more times?
Exactly. And that's where I'm, I guess speaking personally, where I'm learning, that's where grace comes in for myself, and I, in those moments when I can get hung up on the failure or the setback or whatever it is that, things didn't turn out the way I expected it to. And that's the thing. It's like, I feel like God goes, haha, what was your expectation? What did I say? What did I say? And it's like, oh, you're right. And I think, yes, we need to reframe that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm just saying I recognize that we need to reframe that because, why are we going into a new job or a new calling or new vocation expecting, oh, well, I know how this is going to roll? We don't.
Right.
We don't until we're in it, and really you learn as you go and like, circling back to, and you're not alone in it. And right. And you have community, or a team that surrounding you that wants to see you, hopefully wants to see you succeed and prosper and then move forward, not only in your leadership, but in the success of the company or organization as well. And I mean, that's what God wants too, right? So it's, man.
Yes. Well, that's part of faith, right? If it's not, if it's a given and we know what's going to happen, then that's not faith. That's just following directions. This whole thing is about taking that step of faith. And honestly, you're saying everything. And I totally get it because I feel the same way. I'm like, I want the 20-year plan. I want the, turn by turn, God, show me all the things. And he's like, I'm just going to give you the next step. And then you're going to, obey me and let me, work out all the details. And so it's about just continuing to take that next step. And it's going to be scary and it's going to be hard and it's going to be uncomfortable. But I think once we just get over the fact that it's not going to be scary, it's going to be comfortable and it's going to be easy. That's where we get messed up because we think, well, if it's from God, it's supposed to be all things. No, and actually read the word. It doesn't say that. It's going to be hard and it's going to be scary and it's going to challenge you. But I also know, like in Nehemiah, the joy of the Lord is my strength. So I can take that step and I can be afraid, but I can still have the joy in my heart and still lead the way he wired me to lead, and even if I'm scared out of my mind.
We're going to press pause here on the conversation for a moment to give you some insight on ways to connect with the Polished Network. And when we come back, Melissa's hopping into that Ask Me Anything hot seat so we can learn more about her. So stay tuned. Are you a working woman looking to elevate your leadership this year? Polished Collaboratories could be your next right step in moving forward in your leadership development. Polished Collaboratories are small groups modeled after executive peer groups, yet available to working women at all levels of leadership. Collaboratory members dive into leadership training with a faith-forward perspective for 12 months. This is your opportunity to tap into diverse perspectives, conquer challenges, and achieve your goals in a united sisterhood. New groups are launching in 2024. We want you to be a part of it. So go to polishednetwork.org/collaboratories to learn more. Well, welcome back, friends of the Polished Podcast. We hope you're enjoying the conversation we're having today with our guest, Melissa Mashburn. But now it's time to add a dash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. So, Melissa, this is how it works. This is a chance for us to peel back the layers and get to know the woman behind the work and the quirks behind your expertise. And I've curated a few questions for you. We're just going to follow our curiosity to learn more. How's that sound?
That sounds terrifying and awesome at the same time.
Oh, you can handle it. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Question 1. If you could only eat one type of cuisine for the rest of your life, which would you choose and why?
Totally easy. I got this one. Greek food. All day,
Greek.
every day. I love it. I love it. I love it. I don't feel icky after eating it. And
Yes.
let's just talk about the hummus.
Yeah.
So, yum.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good. Do you have a particular Greek dish that you love the most?
I'm a chicken kebab, Greek salad, all the hummus, all the pita, all the, I like all of it.
Yeah, I like that. Is spanakopita? That's Greek, right?
Yes, but I have not tried that. I like
Oh,
that.
yeah. It's like if it's on an appetizer at a Greek restaurant, I don't like to go off, anywhere to get it. But spinach pie is pretty good with dill and the feta and all the things and yes. Oh my gosh. So good. On everything.
Yes.
I totally
You have
love it.
totally different meals every day with all the different, even like side dishes and stuff. And
It's so many options.
I don't have Greek food where I am now in South Texas. So this is the only not amazing thing about South Texas right now.
Oh my goodness.
I'm
well, if you're listening,
the Lord will bring Greek food.
Yes, I was going to say, all my entrepreneurs that are listening, if you want to launch a Greek restaurant, South Texas, there's a gap in the market there. That's for right. Sure.
I'll be your awesome. Best customer.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Melissa, what's the most memorable piece of advice you've ever received, and how has it impacted your life?
Let's see. Well, we talked about failure, and somebody told me failure's not final; it's an opportunity to learn. All that, because I do tend towards the perfectionistic,
sure.
Mostly because I just want everything to be just right. But when I embrace failure, it frees me up to try, fall, and then try again. But I think maybe one of my favorite ones is actually right back here, over here behind me, and it says. Towels over titles. And I got that when I was ordained as a pastor. And it was just a reminder that, I might have the title of pastor, but I'm really a servant. And so the like towel that. Over title has been a good reminder in every season that's the order that I lead with.
I love that. That's towels over titles. I'm going to write that one down. I like that a lot. Melissa, what's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself in the past year?
That I am actually way more resilient than I give myself credit for, because we look at all the mistakes that we've made and we look at all the times that we have fallen, or how long it took us to get back up, or how long it took us to have like a temper tantrum or crying or whatever, right? But the trials, the hardships, and the challenges have actually helped to shape me into the person that I am today. And honestly, I lead a whole lot differently because of it.
That's so good. That is so good. Finally, if you could swap lives with someone for a day, who would it be and what would you do?
This is actually a tough question, because there are a lot of women that I really admire, but I don't think I would want to swap with them, right? They have their work to do and I have mine. But I think if I was thinking of it truly from just this would be fun perspective, I would probably pick Oprah, only because it'd be great to live on an island in Hawaii right now with a chef, butler, and all the things. And all the cool things that she gets to do too, but right now I'm kind of stuck on she lives on an island in Hawaii and she has a chef and a butler, and that would just be great not to have to figure out what I'm going to fix for dinner. Yeah.
Amen to that. I'm right there with you. I'm kind of in I think a cooking rut at home, and I blame it on my children, but, cause they don't have adventurous palates. Let's just say that, but, that does sound amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing with us. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to be a part of the conversation too. We want your questions and your curious musings and your wild wonderings about our guests. So if there's just something that you've always wanted to know, submit your question today. You can go and do that at polishnetwork.org. Join us on October 18th in Carrollton, Texas for the Boldly Conference. This event is dedicated to your professional development as a working woman from a faith-forward perspective. At Boldly, we are faith-anchored, mission-driven, and boldly united. In a world marked by division, we're coming together in Christ around our conference theme, unity. Unity isn't about uniformity or isolation. It's about embracing our differences, leveraging our unique strengths, and honoring diverse perspectives. We recognize that we are all essential parts of one body, each contributing something valuable. And this year, we're bridging the gap between sacred and secular, letting our faith guide our actions to make a lasting impact for the kingdom, united. Save the date, October 18th, 2024 at Bentry Bible Church in Carrollton, Texas. Don't miss out on early bird pricing too. That's available now through July 31st, so secure your spot today. Melissa, based on your experiences and the insights that we've talked through today, what would be your top recommendation or next right step for someone looking to enhance their ability to lead with enthusiasm, especially during those challenging times?
Yeah, this one's actually easy for me. And I think that's because I'm such a collaborator. It would be find a community of like-minded women and get involved, whether it's through the Polish Network, whether it's in Ministry Chick, whatever is a better fit for you. But the first thing I would say is to be proactive in seeking a community where you can get the support that you need. You're not alone. We're not meant to do this alone. So find your community and get involved with a group that will walk alongside you in good times and in challenging times.
That's so good. Yes, community is key for sure. And then I'm thinking of just, leaders who have teams that they want to encourage and empower and move them forward. How can leaders encourage their teams to lead with enthusiasm?
Yeah. I think to lead with enthusiasm, you have to acknowledge all the feels, right? So it's not just, we've talked about several times, not just all the happy, joy, right? So I think that begins with opening the door for honest communication with your team. I'm not talking about oversharing or TMI, but I'm talking about checking in on them as people, right? Speak the truth in love, share with kindness, and let your team know that they're way more than just what they do. They are a human being. And part of being a human being is making room to process emotions. So when you check in on them, it's how are you doing? And it's causing them also, you're leading them with strength because one, you care on a human level, right? But you're also allowing them the space to process their own emotions. So it's linking arms in the hard times, like I'm here, you're not alone, let's figure this out. But it's also having fun. We need to have fun together inside and outside of work. And that's going to look different based off of budget. That's going to look different based off of the people and the environment and the work you do. But you can have fun and it doesn't cost a lot of money. The Dollar Tree has fun stuff. So you don't have to, it's not about buying expensive gifts. It's about thinking outside of the box and knowing your people enough to know, oh my gosh, they like those Razzles, from the 80s, the little candies that you would chew on and then they turned to gum, but it was weird. Or they like Pop Rocks, or, finding out about the people that you lead and what would just bring them like a little pocket of joy each day.
Yeah, no, and intentionality goes a long way when you're leading a team, for sure. When you're leading any sort of group of people, for sure. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story and encouraging us. Do you have any resource recommendations? I mean, I know you lead Ministry Chick. You can have at it. What resources do you recommend for us?
I was actually thinking, yes, obviously Ministry Chick,
Yes.
Ministry Chick, the community, all those things. But I was also, just because of the conversations that we had today, and the specific things that we talked, some books and some resources that have been really helpful for me. I mentioned Soundtracks by John Acuff earlier. Lisa Whittle's got a book called The Hard Good. It's really, especially if you're dealing with kind of any adversity and you're normally an enthusiastic type person, to kind of process that. N.T. Wright has a book called Simply Jesus, that's really good to kind of get yourself reoriented and really focused on the right thing. And then we talked a lot about emotions today as well. And so one of the best books I've ever read on this whole thing about feeling all your feels and processing them is called The Voice of the Heart by Chip Dodd. And it's Discover the Gift of the 8 Feelings. And I will tell you, it's not an easy book.
Really?
Because it forces you to kind of think about things that your feelings, right? And so, and it's not just happy, sad, mad, glad, all of those other things. It's getting to the root. So when we're talking about leading through adversity and stuff, when we're talking about self-awareness, it's part of it is doing the work. And so that would be my recommended resources for the things that we've talked about today.
Oh, that's great. Well, we will be sure to link to all those in our show notes. So be sure to go check those out. Melissa, before we wrap things up, how can people connect with you and follow the work that you do, get connected to your community? Let us know all the things.
All the things. First of all, I would love to see you. If you are a woman in the ministry space or lead, like I said, nonprofit, faith-based, Christian education, stuff like that, I would love to personally invite you to check out the Ministry Chick community on Facebook. You can also go to ministrychick.com. My book, obviously, Ministry Chick, but I'm on social media pretty much everywhere. Melissa Mashburn, melissamashburn.com. But here's the thing: everything that I do is for women, especially women leaders. So I wouldn't say you're like, well, I'm not really in the ministry space or whatever. There's still resources for you, and there's still a place. Like with Polish Network and other places, don't let it just be about a Ministry Chick. Do the research, find the one that fits you, and jump in.
Yeah, and I will second that. Ministry Chick is a great resource. So, check it out, follow the page, get into the community because it is the real deal. So, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your heart with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, friend. I love every minute that we get to talk together.
I love Melissa's reminder to us all that regardless of what we are experiencing in our current season, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And because that is true, we can do hard things. We can do scary things. We can say yes in obedience, knowing that God is with us and in us every step of the way. Because of this, we can authentically lead with enthusiasm. Do you have a different takeaway from today's conversation? If so, let me know. Share your thoughts for this episode on our Instagram post, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments below. Let's continue this dialogue on leading with enthusiasm. As we wrap up this episode, I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who plays a role in making the Polish Podcast a reality. The Polish Podcast is made possible in part by the generous support of Coca-Cola Consolidated. Thank you to Melissa Mashburn for reminding us that leading with enthusiasm is an opportunity to grow in our resilience as a leader. To our loyal listeners, your unwavering support and your engagement drive us to deliver content that resonates and emboldens. Thank you, Polish Network, for creating a nurturing community where women in the workforce can thrive and connect. A big thank you to White Oak Christian Church for their partnership and contributions to the production of these episodes. Leading with enthusiasm can be a beacon of hope during challenging times. It's in these moments of adversity that we must cultivate discernment with the Holy Spirit so that we can approach and navigate our challenges.
Check your heart. What's going on in your own life right now?
If you're seeking a supportive community for your faith and your work journey, I'd love to encourage you to join us on social media and our YouTube channel. Stay updated with our latest content by liking, subscribing, and taking a moment to rate and review the Polish Podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as our YouTube channel. Your engagement means a lot, and it helps us create content that's meaningful to you. Until next time, this is Jane Dorman signing off. Keep moving forward and stay emboldened.